Okay, so Kal Kadosh, Erev Tov. First of all, we start with Potchim Lichvod Achsanya, right? We wanted to thank the Ochayon family for opening up the doors. And Bezrat Hashem, they should always have many shiurim, many simachot in this house, and all the berachot Bezrat Hashem. Make sure that you continue eating throughout the entire shiur, right? You don't want the food to get cold. Fine. Okay. Today we're going to start, if you remember last week we were finishing speaking about the entire concept of what is the man's most needs, which means the male necessity, what does he need most, and then what does the female need most. And today we're going to speak about something which is basically tikshoret b'nisuin, which means connection in marriage. What does it mean, connection? So we're going to start as follows. Marriage is a commitment, a mutual commitment between a man and a woman, and they want to stay together, whether it's going to be they work together, they have to satisfy their needs, and there's a lot of things which are going to be done together. They have the family together. There's many different things which they are being done together, and there's a lot of details. However, though, among the actions though that we have to perform, there are certain things that we just don't understand, and I'll give you an example. Right? Imagine right now, a husband calls his wife and he says, "I'm sorry, honey, but I'm not coming home today, and neither tomorrow." So she asks, "Okay, what happened?" Says, "I just don't feel like it." So you would say, "Okay, that's something very weird going on. What does that mean? You just don't feel like it?" Right? But obviously, or imagine a woman calls her husband and she says, "For the next 2 weeks, I'm not taking care of the children." And he's going to say, "How are you feeling? Is something wrong?" "Oh, everything's okay. I'm actually very healthy. Everything's perfect, but just, I don't feel like it." So obviously you would say that this is a very big problem. There's something wrong here. And we have to understand, why does this happen? So obviously we cannot do these things. But many times we think that when it has to do with things between extras, we think that we don't have to give it to our spouse because we don't really need to give it to them. But it's not really true, because I'll give you an example, right? For example, emotional support, emotional satisfaction, what we're going to call compliments, machmaot. A large part of the shiur tonight will be about complimenting each other, right? Not complimenting each other, not only in midot and everything else that we do, but actually giving compliments to one another. So when we're talking about emotional support, is it that important that really we have to give it to each other or not? So let's start. I'm going to give you an example. A person wants to go to work. So you're going to ask him, "Why are you going to work?" So he's going to ask you. He's going to answer you, obviously, "Why am I going to work? I need to make a parnasah. I have to come and have to support a family. I need, this is what I need. I need to support a wife and children." Okay, chazak baruch. You're going to ask him, when you're going to work, do you think you need any words of appreciation or compliments or anything? The answer usually will be, "No, I just need the money." But you will realize, the majority of people, the second that they feel that they're not appreciated and they're not wanted, they will come and look for another job. And even if it's going to be that the second job will pay less in salary than the first one, by nature a person wants to feel appreciated. He wants to feel that he's in a nice, healthy environment. And that healthy environment means that it's nice, it's pleasant to be there. And part of that is to do with the compliments or that they appreciate you. That's why it's very, very important that wise supervisors, right? So if anybody's going to be a manager of a big company, what do? They come and they invent titles. So you're going to give a title. So for one person, you're going to come, and this is going to be the majority of the employees. So you're going to say, "Okay, he's a team leader. He's a deputy team leader. This one is responsible for whatever it is, supervisor." You just come and you make up. Sometimes you see it in the schools. Every single time you come and you see the schools, right? Especially I see it in my school. Every single time there's another 20 names. And each time you have to come, you have a principal, right? Associate principal, the deputy principal, the assistant principal, the associate assistant principal, and then you have the Hebrew division, then you have the English division there, and you come and you say to yourself, "Ribono shel Olam, how many titles do you need?" Right? But really, be'emet, It's necessary for every single person. So many times, by the way, that's why, even the house, the man has he's got a title, right? The woman has a title, the children, this one's in charge of this one's in charge of that. Why? By giving them that, you make them feel gold. You make them feel something incredible. And all of a sudden, that's what people need. And they want that. And this is all because of the most important thing that a person needs is basically the good feelings, the positive feelings and feeling of appreciation. That's exactly what a human being needs. Now, even though we've just done that, many times, apparently, especially when we're going to create a family bond, we need that even more. Why do we need that even more? Because many times, right, we are in a society that we want to feel appreciated. But the person that we need to feel appreciated most is by our spouse. Because the closer that you are, the more that you have between them. And therefore, that's when you have the majority, much more, that you have to actually come and you have to feel appreciated. And therefore, you have to actually remember that the strongest feeling that a person needs is self-confidence. And therefore, the same extent in the eyes of all those around him. So therefore, a person needs to feel that they're good about themselves, about everything that's going to be. We're going to speak about it in Blina, probably the next shiur, that we're going to speak about how do you rebuke or how are you going to tell your spouse about certain things that you need or that you want or you want to be fixed. So, right? So that when we're going to speak about the concept of bikoret, right, which is a very also how do you do it, how do you give it, are you allowed to, not allowed to, when, where, how, what. So also part of that will also be is that first of all, we have to understand what it is, the importance of giving compliments. And then afterwards, you could come and you could say negative things that you also want, or you want to actually arouse and tell your spouse about it. So from the experience of meeting many times, there's going to be a very big problem. And the problem that exists is that they don't feel this, which means they don't come and they don't feel the obligation to give that moral support to their spouse. Which means everything else they feel, yes, I have to go and I have to work. But one second, when you go to work, you want to feel appreciated. So why is it that with your spouse, that you're there and you're supposed to unite and you're supposed to become one, why don't you feel the same necessity, the same requirement, that you're obligated to come and to give those compliments? Okay, so that's what we're going to try to speak about tonight. Now, when we're speaking about the entire concept of machmaot, we're going to actually say as follows. When we were speaking about needs, you remember we spoke about what does a man need, what does a woman need. So it's actually a need by all human beings. We need to feel appreciated and the importance of this concept. So we're going to bring down a Rambam. Listen to this Rambam. The Rambam, this is going to be found on his Pirusha Mishnayot on Sanhedrin. And he says like this, you're going to find that most people, right, they're going to come and they're going to worry about their neshamot or their bodies, where they're going to work for it until they get to a certain level of respect. Okay, and therefore he comes and he says there's a lot of people that they're going to distance themselves from enjoying, whether it's because they don't want to feel embarrassed of other human beings, or they want that they should have a good name. And therefore the Rambam comes and says something very interesting. Receiving appreciation, which is in essence what we spoke about last time, kavod, is the strongest need that a person has. That you want to feel that you're appreciated. You want to feel loved. You want to feel that you're part of something, that you're building a part of something. If you're just going to be there and doing nothing, it's a waste, right? Everyone knows what happened in the Holocaust. There was a person that he was working for many, many years. Every single day he was in the grind mill. And every single year he was grinding. Now the problem there was, right, is that there was a wall and he had the wheel on this side and he's just grinding. What they did is after the Holocaust, is that they took him on the other side of the wall. And what was there? There was nothing. It was a wheel, just going around and around. The guy went and he committed suicide. And the reason why was because he felt that he was doing something for so many years, that even though he was a slave, he was in a labor camp, and he was obviously in the Holocaust, but he felt, I'm doing something productive, I feel good about myself. But when a person comes and they feel that all they're doing is just going around and around, and all of a sudden they realize that there was nothing actually happening, it burst their bubble. They feel that they did nothing all their lives. And therefore, that was actually the worst out of everything else that a person could have actually done to this person. But now when we're speaking about this, we're actually going to realize that many times we hear, whether it's from women, that they come and they say, even if this big palace that I live in, what is it worth it if there's no warmth? There's no chamim, I don't feel anything here. Or what do I gain from my husband's greatness if he doesn't treat me like anything? Or we hear a husband, and the husband comes and he says, why do I care about all these foods if I don't have any warmth? Which means that we realize that many times you could be doing a job in a marriage, and you think you have a check. Which means, for example, I'm a woman and I'm making meals every single day. So I have a check. I come and I make food 3 times a day. I have for my children, lunch, supper, and everything. But really, be'emet, it's worthless if you don't have the warmth that's going to be given with the meal. The same thing happens other way around, right? The husband could be a big shot. He's coming, working, and he's bringing parnassah. She's living in a huge palace. And she says, what's it worth it for me if he doesn't even give me attention, if he doesn't even care about me? Which means that we actually realize that that's actually one of the most important aspects of the marriage. And this is actually brought down in the Gemara Ketubot. The Gemara Ketubot brings a pasuk. The pasuk says, in the end of Bereshit, it says, Ulben shinai michalav, says Rabbi Yochanan, Tov amalbin shinaim lechavero yoter mimashkeu koshel chalav. What does that mean? It's much better that you're going to come and you're going to actually appreciate, you're going to give words of encouragement. You're going to give a smile. You're going to give something to your friend even more than giving him a glass of milk. Which means you would have thought to say that, listen, what's more important? I'm giving you to eat or to drink, or I'm giving you the warmth that comes with it. And the answer is that the warmth that comes with that cup is even more important than the cup in itself. And we're going to see that in many places as well. An incredible Gemara. Listen to this. I'm sure you've heard about it. The Gemara says in Masechet Bab Metzia. The Gemara says as follows: Kol hamalbim perei chavero barabim, en lo chelek leolam haba. If you embarrass your friend publicly, so what happens? You don't have a portion in the world to come. Yeah, it's the Gemara. The Gemara says that. Now the question that we come and we ask ourselves is, okay, but one second. The Maharal comes and he asks, what happens if you actually murder them? You don't embarrass them. You murder them. What's worse?
Embarrassing. Sounds like embarrassing.
Why?
Embarrassing. We don't say no halak
Ah.
on a murderer.
On a murderer, we kill them, but they get olam haba. Here it says the words en lo chelek leolam haba. He doesn't get olam haba. So we explained in the Bet Knesset another answer, because we said that when a person embarrasses someone, so they don't feel that they're doing something so bad, so therefore they never do a real teshuvah. And that's the reason why. But tonight I'm going to give you the Maharal. The Maharal says something completely different. And the Maharal comes and he says that the reason is because he says the murderer killed the body of the murdered, but he says, but the one that comes and he actually embarrassed him, he did a much more serious act because he killed his neshama. He killed his essence. He killed his soul. Which means when a person comes, a body is a body. But that's it. There's nothing more than the body. But when you come and you kill the person, his entire essence, that's much worse. The body could heal. You could come, you could injure a body will heal. But the neshama, the inside of a person, the emotional status of what a person is feeling, takes much more to heal. It's not the same. So the Maharal says it's much worse to come and to embarrass a human being. Why? Because when you embarrass them, it has a much worse effect than actually killing them. Because the killing is just the body. But here you're actually taking his neshama. Now we're only going to think that this is so strong only on this part. Let's take it one step further even. Why? Let's take it one step when we're going the concept of tzedakah. Yeah? We're going to see the same yesod brought down. And obviously we're going to continue. Because we're going to ask the following question. A person comes and he gives charity. What is the big deal of charity? What does tzedakah do for us? So if I'm going to ask you, what are the benefits of tzedakah? So what are you going to tell me? Usually people, tzedakah tatzimi mavet. It gives, it's going to save also from different... Okay, so you're already going for the benefits, right? That I want to give the maaser in order to become rich, right? You're giving tzedakah. Okay, fine. But I'm going to ask you something very, very interesting. I'm going to come and I'm going to give somebody $100. Yeah, but I just gave it to them and that's it. Here's $100. Goodbye. Litraut. Okay, fine. I come and I'm going to give somebody else $1. But I come and I'm going to tell them, by the way, you should have a lot of beracha and atzlacha in what you're doing. Don't worry, right? You should feel good. Even though it's going to be difficult, you'll see how Hashem is going to help you. And I come and I give him words of chizuk. I actually elevate him. I actually, as if to say, I make him feel good. Which one's better?
$1.
The dollar.
Dollar. How do you know? Just because it's the word of the shiur.
No.
So why?
Because you made the person feel really good. You gave them confidence. And like usually like people when they have a high self-esteem, they feel like they can do it.
So you're saying that you're giving them the strength to do so.
Yeah.
She's 100% correct, but listen to the Gemara. The Gemara says, anybody that comes, Rabbi Yitzchak comes and he says, if you give a penny to the poor, you get 6 berachot. But if you come and you encourage him, you get 11 berachot. Which means it's almost double the power. Not only that it's better, it's almost double. How many berachot do you get when you're giving tzedakah? So you just right now came and you give tzedakah to a poor person, you get 6 blessings. 6 berachot. So it's beautiful, right? Especially Ased Ta'ased, you get beracha plus more berachot. 6 berachot. But right now I came and I encouraged him, I get 11. Now, a diuk that a lot of people actually make is it said over there that if you're going to come and you're going to give him the encouragement, you get 11. What happens if you give him an encouragement and you give him the tzedakah? So it's much more than you get the 17. So now it's not anymore the 6 and the 11. Really, Be'emet, look at the difference it is because you came and you gave words of encouragement with the tzedakah that you actually gave. But it's more than that. Why? Right? Because tzedakah has 2 different purposes. What does it have 2 different purposes? The first purpose of tzedakah is you're helping the person with his physical needs, correct? You came and you helped somebody. He needed tzedakah, you gave him tzedakah. But there's another purpose. The other purpose is that since we are tied to our money, we are trying to come and control ourselves. Which means that's why the Rambam always says that it's always better to give 100 times $1 than to give $100 in one shot. Because when you give $100 in one shot, you worked on yourself once. To actually work on yourself to depart from money that was hard-earned money that you made yourself, and now you're giving from yourself to someone else. But when you do that 100 times, you're working on yourself 100 times. So there's 2 important aspects of tzedakah. The one aspect that you're helping someone else, and the second one that you're actually helping yourself. But the Gemara is actually saying that which one was stronger. And what the Gemara is actually mentioning is that the stronger one is what you're actually giving, right, from yourself to the other person. That is much stronger because you're giving him words of encouragement from yourself. Now, how do we see this? Because the Gemara says that there's going to be a difference between gemilut chasadim and tzedakah. What is better? Right, gemilut chasadim chesed or tzedakah. So the Gemara says that gemilut chasadim is better than tzedakah in 3 ways. Right? Because Gemilut Chasadim is done whether with the rich or with the poor. You could do chesed to a rich person. He needs to borrow something, right? Whatever it is, you do chesed, right? You give him a good morning. You're able to do chesed with the rich person, just like with a poor person. Tzedakah, you can give tzedakah to a rich person, right? Not only is it going to be that Gemilut Chasadim applies to the rich and to the poor, one is done with your money, one is also done with your body. Right? And therefore, when we're talking about that the entire concept, Gemilut Chasadim, is much greater, this is based upon the Gemara, that which one is stronger. Now, if we're just actually going to go back, we're going to realize that many times we think that the poor person is the poor person. It's actually just a euphemism of anybody that needs encouragement. Which means your wife is considered poor because she needs you. And your husband is poor because he needs you. And sometimes your children are poor because they need you. Each one of them, they need words of encouragement. And every single time that we're talking about that you have to encourage them, you have to actually come and help them out, that in essence is what we actually have to achieve with them. Now, we actually understand, according to this, right, that emotionally, it's actually much stronger. Let's go to the next step. We're going to go to Ve'avta l'recha kamocha. We have a mitzvah. Ve'avta l'recha kamocha means that we have a mitzvah to do to your friend, to come and to do to your friend good. You have to love him just like you love yourself. The Rambam, when he brings this down, he actually comes and he says something incredible. The first thing that the Rambam says after the mitzvah, Ve'avta l'recha kamocha, he comes and he says that's why a person has to come and he has to actually mention, right, the entire concept of what? He says, mitzvah al kol adam lehev kol echad, and then he says, what's the first thing? Tzarich lesaper bishvacho. You have to sing his praises. Which means, if I'm going to come and I'm going to say you have to love your friend like you love yourself, what is the first way how to show yourself? We're going to say how to express the love to your friend? Sing his praises. That's the first thing that the Rambam actually says. The Zohar HaKadosh, though, says something more scarier. And listen to the Zohar. The Zohar says, how much punishment does a person have because of a bad word that he said? But there's going to be even a greater punishment for a good word that he could have said, and he didn't actually say it. One more time. How much bad does a person get for a bad word? Somebody went and he actually spoke against, the Zohar says, he's Tselem Elokim. He came and he spoke against another human being. So that human being is in the image of Hashem. You come and you spoke negative to them. So obviously imagine what it is, what type of punishment that you get. But says the Zohar, but it's actually going to be worse. He says, for a good word that's coming that you could have said, and you didn't actually say that good word. That's scary. Why? Because that means that why? The Zohar finishes by saying something incredible. And he says, he's pogem beruach memaleah. What does that mean that you're going to be pogem in the ruach memaleah? So we're going to actually say something like this. Listen to this very, very deep concept. What did we just say when you're giving tzedakah? We just said when you're going to give tzedakah, there are three aspects to giving tzedakah. With your money, with your body, and then with your words of encouragement. The words of the encouragement is actually the easiest one to fulfill, even though the majority of people don't do that. Which means it's the easiest to do, but the majority of people don't do it. Now we're going to explain why afterwards, but we have to understand, majority of people, it's much harder for them to express themselves, to give those words of compliment. But listen to what the Torah says. The Torah says, "Vayitzer Hashem Elokim et ha'adam afar min yadav v'yipach be'apav nishmat chayim." What does that mean? When a person comes, HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted to make the human being, he came and he blew into him the nishmat chayim, the neshama. Where did he do that? They say through the nose, and that's why in the olden days, when a person would sneeze, the neshama would come out of the nose, and that's why they say asuta. They would actually say bless you, right? That was already coming from Yaakov Avinu. From what? Why? Because when a person would sneeze, the neshama would just leave. The neshama would just leave. That's how they would act. Just like it came in, it would come out. Okay. But Unkelus comes and he says something interesting. Unkelus says, what does it mean? Lenefesh chaya, ruach memalea. What does that mean? Your neshama, it makes you into a medaber. Meaning like this. What's the difference between a human being and an animal? We know there's different aspects in the world, correct? We have a domem, which is an inanimate object, right? You have the rocks, right? The grass. You have something which is a tzomeach, something which grows. So therefore that could be plants or anything else that actually grows, right? Then you're going to have, after the domem, tzomeach, you have something which is alive, chai, which is an animal. And then you have a medaber. A medaber is actually somebody that speaks. Who is that person that speaks? We human beings, we speak. Where does that come from? That comes from the neshama from within us, that it gives us the power to speak. So therefore comes now, and he says something incredible. And they say as follows. They say, whenever we're actually talking about, right, this concept of speech, since speech is the expression of what's within us, it means that when you come and you give encouragement, it's not just some words. You're giving him part of your neshama. You're giving him part of yourself, your neshama, to the other human being. And that's why it's so important. Because it's not just stam that you're coming and you're just doing something. When you come, you're investing part of your soul into that human being, and that's what you're actually doing, what Hashem wanted. Hashem wanted us to have this ruach malah. That was what the Zohar HaKadosh says, that if you're not going to give a good word that you had, right? Why? Because you had a word that you were able to give it and you didn't give it, you're being pogem in the ruach memala. What was the purpose of that speech? The purpose of speech was supposed to come and to give it to others, was in order to actually come and to build other people. And that's in essence what a person has to do. So therefore, right, when we're just coming back to what we spoke about before, right, and we're actually understanding, so now it actually comes out the importance of giving compliments in the family. Why? Because we have to actually realize that even though, just like when a person works, he says, okay, but I'm working very, very hard, but I feel good. Why? Because even though I worked very, very hard, I know I'm doing it for my wife and children. And the wife, she's also working very, very hard. Whether even it's in a home or even it's outside and then the second and third job, which is at home. And so, but what happens? She also feels good. Why? She's doing it for her husband and for her children. But at the end of the day, but what about, we have to actually come and encourage them. Where's the words of appreciation? Where's the words of the encouragement? Because if we're not going to encourage them, so again, we don't want them to start looking for a new job. We don't want them to start coming and saying, one second, but we're lacking part, because that's the most important part of what we're actually speaking about before. So some people are going to come and they're going to say, okay, fine. So it's not me. What does that mean? I can't give compliments, or I can't think about these things, or I can't start lying, or why should I praise them? Everything that he does, I also have to do it in many other ways as well. But at the end of the day, these answers are not actually coming and telling us what the a person needs to do, because you have to give from yourself. So now we're going to go back to last week's shiur. What was the purpose that we mentioned of encouragement? So encouragement, we said, was a connection. What does it mean a connection? When you come and you give words of encouragement to someone, you connect with them. So we already explained how. Because when you give them part of your neshama, you become part with them, and that was the entire purpose of marriage. The entire purpose of marriage was actually to come and to become one whole. So if we're not going to come and complement each other, so therefore what are we doing then? However though, right, there's many, many different elements within this, and therefore we have to actually come and to bind together, we have to look how to complement, which means we have to pay attention to different things in order to complement, right? One of the biggest Rabbanim on Shalom Bayit, he actually said at the end that he went and after a big shiur that he gave, usually his shiurim were always an hour and a half on every single, just like one little tiny topic. So afterwards he came and he said, okay, fine, after this shiur, we're going to come and we're all going to start complimenting. So we're going to invest complimenting. He comes and he says, you don't know how the entire atmosphere of the house, everything changed. Why? Because we're going to see how much important it is, whether it's the complimenting, whether it's even, we're going to see, is it even flattering, whether it's what's the purpose, what stops us from complimenting, how are we supposed to compliment, when are we supposed to compliment, should we compliment outside? So therefore all these things are going to be very, very important, right, for us to know. Now, when we're going to speak about other things also, it's going to actually help us overcome many, many difficulties. Why? Because when you're in an atmosphere that there's love, that there's harmony in the house, so therefore, even though there's going to be many other problems that could arise, for example, chas v'shalom, health problems, or many other problems as well, since they were bound together and they feel always encouraged, they always know that you have their back. They always know that they have the support system in place. So therefore, they're able to withstand anything. But if they were always cold, which means that they didn't have that, so then what happens is that all of a sudden, every single little challenge that comes up becomes a very big challenge. Because then they don't realize and they start saying, 1 second, you know what, they can't cope and they don't have a support. And then, but 1 second, but you should have a support. And that support actually comes from your second half. The Rav Nassan Tzvi Finkel, the Saba Mislobodka, he actually came and he instructed that he says like this, he says, if you want to bring a person to do positive deeds, whether it's ben adam lechavero, ben adam lemakom, he says all you have to do is show gadlut adam. All you have to do is show how great that they are. That's all you have to do. You have to show them how important that they are. And he says the second that they do that, they will refrain from engaging in all these petty little nonsense, whether it's averot or anything else. Which means when you come and you build your partner by giving them encouraging words, you're actually coming, you're making them into someone completely different. And that's why it's going to be so important in everything that we're speaking about. When we're going to speak about the entire concept of showing encouragement, we have to realize that encouragement actually pushes a person to give them the strength to do so. And that's what I think she said beforehand. It's going to push them to do it. Now, why? Where do we see that? So in the Torah, it's actually brought down something very interesting. This is actually based upon Yalkut Shimoni, where the Yalkut Shimoni comes and he actually says as follows. Amar Rabbi Yitzchak, says Rabbi Yitzchak, right? He says like this: when a person comes and he does a mitzvah, you should do it wholeheartedly. And he says, why? If Reuven would have known that the Torah would have written about him, Vayishma Reuven vayatzileu miadam, that meaning the Torah is coming in writing, that Reuven heard what was going on and he saved them, he would have brought Yosef back on his shoulders. Meaning, Reuven didn't do that. Reuven just saved them, that he said, why are you guys going to kill him? Leave him here, don't kill him, don't do anything, right? And then afterwards, he had to go back to his father, to serve his father. Then when he comes back, hey, what happened? And he didn't realize that they already sold him. But if he would have known what was written about him in the Torah, that would have given him extra strength, that he would have run to do it. The same thing happened with Aaron HaKohen. It says, if Aaron HaKohen would have known, that in the Torah it says, V'ra'acha v'samach belibo, which means that right now, Aharon was the leader in Avam Yisrael. After Amram the father, was Aharon. And Aharon was a leader. All of a sudden comes his younger brother, and usually with sibling rivalry, they would have thought to say, they're going to be jealous. Who's this one now? What is this? He wasn't even here. He was absent for the past, 60 years, and all of a sudden he's coming back. Now he becomes the leader. What's going on? The opposite. Says the Torah, Aaron comes and he says, V'ra'acha, he saw him, he was happy. We know that because of the happiness of Aaron, he was zochet to have the choshen al libo. He was able to have the choshen mishra, which actually had the name of Hashem and everything on his heart, to testify that his heart was truth and joyful. But the Torah actually is telling us that even an Aaron HaKohen would have come out with shirim, he would have come out with drums, he would have come out dancing. I mean, he came out with a joy, but he didn't come with the tupim u'cholot, he didn't come with the drums. But he would have done that. And it continues the Midrash with Boaz and others. What does that mean? That means here, we're not speaking about you and me. We're speaking about Aaron HaKohen. We're speaking about Reuven. And still, the Torah is teaching us that if these people would have known the words of encouragement, or the words that the Torah would have written about them, they would have performed even better. So imagine what we could do, right? Whether it's going to be to our spouses and to everybody else. Because the words of encouragement that we are actually going to come and give are going to have a much stronger effect. So now the question that we're going to ask is, okay, fine. So therefore, the question that we ask is, why is it so difficult then to compliment? Why? Why would it be so difficult to compliment? At the end of the day, if we understand that it's part of Ve'ahavta l'recha kamocha, the Rambam said it's the first mitzvah to do. You want to love your friend, and this is your friend. Remember, we said that if it says Ve'ahavta l'recha kamocha, we mentioned last shiur, that the Gemara actually says that by your wife it has to be yoter migufo, which means you have to love your wife even more than yourself. And she's your best friend. So the l'reacha, re'im ahuvim, what we say in the Sheva Brachot, is even more. So if you have a mitzvah, taseh ve'ahavta l'recha kamocha, and the first way to express that love is by giving compliments. L'saper b'shvacho, sing his praises. Not only that, you're doing tzedakah, right? That in itself is tzedakah. They're not poor, but they don't need to be physically, they don't need to be poor. But they're poor in the sense that they need you. Once they need you, they're considered the poor one, that they need you, just like you're also poor, and you need her support as well. So therefore, if all these things are happening, whether it's going to be the tzedakah, whether it's going to be the mitzvah v'tzedakah kamocha, whether it's going to be from the negative to the positive, of whether it's the Zohar HaKadosh, and of everything else, so then why is it so difficult to come and to give a compliment then? What do you think?
Who says it's hard to give compliments?
Okay, very good. He said, who says that it's hard to give compliments?
She needs to start first.
Very good. That was actually, I think, our first shiur. I think was that. The first shiur we spoke about was who's the instigator. Who's always the instigator? Each one is waiting, just like each one is waiting that the other one should come and do something first. You know, if she behaves, so I'll give it to her as well. If she doesn't behave, no? Anybody else?
You don't want to make a big deal out of it.
What does that mean? You don't want to make a big deal of it?
He took out the kids. Very nice. He's supposed to take out the kids.
Very good. Okay, that's what we said last week. Very, very good. No, right. Very good. She. That's one of the reasons. 1 second.
Something
Right?
normal. Something normal.
What do you mean by normal?
She need to clean, cook,
expectation.
everything.
Okay, so that's what it just says, expectations.
I also think it might have to do
What do you mean
with
she needs?
Which one?
You have housekeeping and all that.
How do you cook? The ego. Very good. Very good. Anybody else?
Some people it just doesn't come naturally.
Very good also. Some people it doesn't come naturally. By the way, somebody told me that last time. They told me that ever since they started coming to Shalom Bayit shiur, they started needing more Shalom Bayit. I said that was the purpose of the shiur, right? You have to get somebody hooked. It's like, you give them a little bit of the sugar, right? Once they get a little bit of sugar, now you come, and then, okay, so now they have to continue coming. Yeah, that's part of it. Fine. So, very good. Until now, we had beautiful answers. We're going to go one by one, but one of the paradoxes that exist is that everyone admits that compliments are very, very important. So the question is, so why don't people actually come? So some people say, no, I want to say it, but I don't know how to articulate it. I don't know how to take it out of my mouth. Meaning it's there. She knows how, somebody once said, right, they went to the rabbi, right? And she comes to the rabbi, she says, listen, Rabbi, I don't know, Shalom Bayit, this and that. He says, what's the problem? She comes and she says, listen, he's dry. He doesn't. She says, what are you talking about? He says, no. He says, when was the last time he ever said that I loved you, that he loved me? He said, the last time he told me I loved you, he said, when was the last time? He said, it was like 24 years ago. He says, well, I still feel the same thing. If I change my mind, I'll let you know. What does that mean? Like what? Now I'm going to have to tell you again? You already know, that's it. Like a broken record. I told you once, that's it. Barakah.
It costs to say something good.
It costs you money.
No, I mean, like you feel like she owes you something.
That she owes you, as I said, that now she owns you.
When you say something nice, you feel like she needs to give you back or something like that.
No. So now one second. What he just said was also gold. Listen carefully. Very, very good. He also said something now good. 1 second. Right? Very good. So listen carefully. Sometimes when there's an argument, right? Sometimes there's an argument, who works harder in the house? Right? So I'm sure if I'm going to ask everyone here, right, is it the husband or the wife? Right? Usually, right? Stop sucking up. Chaim. Yeah, okay. Right? So,
You have to pick your
right?
side. Pick your side, believe me.
I think they're gonna tell you to sit over there, right?
Yeah.
1 second.
It's
Yeah.
like the wife.
Yeah. So 1 second. Yeah.
So
So
what?
what's-
Do 10% what the woman is doing.
Both sides.
By the way, you remember the last time we said that a woman has to sleep more than the husband.
Yeah.
You remember? One of the reasons is because of that. Because since women multitask, their brain are doing a million things in one shot. So therefore, that's why they need more rest. Okay, but fine. Huh? What? No, we said last class that by nature, women have to rest more than men. Right? And the reason why is because we said that since by nature, besides their hormones and everything else, but we said that since by nature they actually multitask, they do much more things, so therefore they need more rest than men. Now again, there's machlokets, between the psychologists and between the doctors, how much more. Some people say 17 minutes, some people say more, but whatever the number is, right, whatever the number though is that, right, whatever the number is, right, for sure that the majority of opinions say that they need more. How much more? That's already a machloket. Leave it to the poskim to speak about it. But for sure, right, that they need more. Oh, okay, fine. So now when we're going to speak about why is it so difficult? So if we're going to say who works harder, so usually the person will usually say, I work harder. So a man will say, I work harder, and the woman's going to say, I work harder. So that's why when they come home, each one wants to say, listen, I want to rest. Now the woman says, you just came home, go take care of the kids. You say, yeah, but I just came home from work. She says, okay, but I was also working. And then, but who's working more? So now, how does it work exactly, right? Who's actually working more? So now usually, right? Again, there's always going to be exceptions to the rules, right? We always have the exception, right? That the men are going to say that the men work harder, and the women are going to say that the women work harder. But the rabbi came and he said to the man, he went and he said like this. He says, obviously, if I'm going to ask you who works harder, what are you going to answer? You work harder. Chazak u'baruch. He says, do you want to hear that? Of course. He says, if you're going to come and you're going to tell that to your wife, what's going to happen? She's going to throw it in your face. What do you think? You really think that you work harder? Obviously not. Okay. But he says, why don't you work the other way around? You come and you tell your wife, listen, I know that you worked so hard. Yeah, you probably were back and forth so much that you don't even know what, like I can't even imagine what you had to do today. So you know what, right? Do you need any help? Do you want me to help you out in anything? So he says, Rabbi, I'm very afraid. She's going to give me the broom. I'm going to have to start, sweeping the floor. Like what's going to happen? He says, but usually you should know, if you come and you do that, she might actually flip on you. And she's going to say, no, but you know what? I know you probably had a very stressful day at work. I know you worked very, very hard. You probably worked harder than me. And all of a sudden now it flips. You're asking a miracle. Okay, but it will happen. It will happen. Huh? Don't try it at home. Okay, fine. Well, now that I said it, I don't know if you should try it. But now Be'emet, she's going to give you the broom. But okay, but that's just the way that it could work. But now we're going to go to, why is it exactly difficult to compliment? So we're going to say like this. One of them is lack of education. What does that mean? Sometimes we don't realize how important it is. We don't realize how important it is. Later on, we're going to speak about it. And by the way, you should know, I'll already mention it now if we're already saying it. For example, a child. Did you ever realize a child comes, right? And he starts a little bit walking. Because he went like 2 steps. You're walking and you're this and you're... Now you came, you exaggerated. You were telling them 1,000,000 times how good they were. You were doing... So 1 second. So what, is your spouse any worse than a child? What is the difference? Why is it that a child, you're coming and you're giving them so many words of encouragement, and not to your spouse, you're not? So part of it comes from the lack of we're going to say, the lack of knowledge or the lack of education, how important it is to come and to give a compliment. Meaning you don't realize that you made the guy's day. You came and you changed everything. Right? Why? Because all you did was you gave them a word of encouragement. And that's what it is. So that's one reason why, right, people do it. Now again, many times, people think that, especially words of criticism, they usually hear outside. But words of, encouragement, usually it's done on the inside. Right? But if you don't give those words of encouragement, so since there's lack of knowledge of Be'emet, how important it is, people don't come and they don't give words of encouragement. A second reason is that there's another difficulty, which is it's self-evident or it's obligatory. That's what we spoke about. I think you said it before. That basically it's like an obligation, meaning that if you're fulfilling the duties, right? He went and he took out the kids. I'm going to tell him kol hakavod. He's obligated to take out. He should take out the kids every single day, right? Now finally he went and he did a favor. I'm going to come and give him right? But that's what we mentioned last class. But that's one of the reasons why we're not going to give a compliment, even though it's very important to give a compliment, because we already explained last time that if you're going to give that compliment, then for sure they'll continue doing it, and if you don't, they won't want to. Number 3, and this is where I think what Fred was mentioning before is people, they make a mistake in honesty, or it's like a deterrent. So I'll give you an example. Sometimes you need something. So what do? You come and you start giving words of compliment. Really, Be'emet, it's 100% sheker. It's 100% false. But the only reason why you're doing it, and you're basically flattering, is just to get what you need. You need a certain thing, whatever it is your need. So now you're going to come and go say, you're such an incredible this. I've seen it many times. They come and they start saying about this guy, and you're like, it's the exact opposite of what he's saying. But it doesn't matter. But the guy, he feels good, which means even though the guy was coming and saying straight falsehood through his teeth, the guy feels good about it. And what happens? So therefore, for us, we feel a little bit like, 1 second, if I'm going to come and I'm going to say something, it's like what? I'm only saying it to get something? So therefore, sometimes it could be that we feel that we're not going to give the words of compliment because we feel like it's like a fake, that we don't really need it. So we're not really actually going to come and give those words of compliments. A fourth factor, though, is competition. What does that mean, competition? Just like there's competition between people, there's competition also between spouses. And therefore, what happens is that there's showing favors to others, as if to say. So this is, I think what they mentioned before, is that they want to require the mind to prepare. It's like basically that 1 second, I have to I'm showing something. It's like like what? They're better than me. So I don't want to show they're better than me. So therefore, I'm just not going to give them a compliment. Why? Because if I compliment them, it means that they're incredible. And I don't want to do that because that means that they are better than who I am. But again, obviously, all these answers that we're giving, right? I'll just give you the last one and then we'll go before, is unfortunately, right? The last one is that people see the negative much more than the positive. So those are just basically 5 different reasons why it's hard for people to come and to give compliments, which means either because they lack the knowledge, right? Or the importance of giving compliments. Number 2, right? It's self-evident or self-obligatory, which means, listen, they're obligated to do it. Why should I give you the thank you? It doesn't make sense, right? Number 3 is that they feel like dishonest in giving it because they feel that they're only giving a compliment to get something, and therefore they just prefer not to say anything. Number 4, we just said, was competition between them and their spouses, showing that that their spouse is better than them. But the 5th one is that actually people just point out the negative more than the positive, and that's why when just people don't realize this, right? Just like it's actually brought down, this is Orchot Chaim to the Rosh. He actually says the way of mankind is actually to overlook good and to reveal the bad, which means people by nature, they come and they overlook good things, and then they only point out the black dot in the middle of the white big page, right? As the common saying goes, because again, that's just the normal way of people doing it. But those are just different reasons why people find it difficult to come and to compliment. But there's very, very big damages which are done. Now, why is there so many damages that are going to be done? Because if people don't give compliments, so then they have to show it in other ways. So for example, there was a guy that came once and he said to the rabbi, I don't know what to do with my wife. She's very, very selfish. So he said, why is she selfish? Oh, she only thinks about herself. So twice a year, she wants to go on vacation to wherever it is, right? Every single few months or whatever, she wants to do renovations in the kitchen, right? Every single day she's buying new clothing, and therefore it's causing a lot of problems. So, I just think that she's selfish. So he went and he told them like this. He said, the reason why she's doing that is because she's trying to find herself and to feel good about herself. He went and he told him, if you would just come and make her feel good about herself, she doesn't need to look for it by other people. She doesn't need to feel appreciated by it. She doesn't need to feel whether it's going to be that approved or that she's special, because you already did that to her. So therefore, you think, right, that she's selfish. Really, Be'emet, she's not selfish. Really, Be'emet, the only thing is that a person has to pay attention to is really Be'emet, is that if you're going to give those words of encouragement, she doesn't have to actually look for it somewhere else. Now, many times when we're talking about criticism, right? Also, it stops criticism, because if the house is always going to be an atmosphere of positivity, so therefore many times people will not look to criticize. And if it is that they will once in a while come and give you that bikora, that criticism, but at least it's going to be watered down, because people by nature remember criticism much more than the positive. And therefore you always have to have much more of the positivity in the house than the negativity. But again, that we'll speak about much later on when we're going to speak about the entire concept of criticism. When we're speaking about now other concepts, something very, very important. Some people came, and I asked this last time, is it difficult to compliment? So somebody said before, well, it's not difficult to compliment. So you ask people, do they compliment you enough? And usually the answer will always usually be no. So you're going to ask, so why not? And many times, right, men, it's more difficult for them, but women will come and say, what are you talking about? I just complimented him today. I told him A, B, C, D, E. I told him yesterday and the day before yesterday, right? The computer continues going. Everything that she complimented. And the husband, he didn't even pay attention. So what happened? Or sometimes it could be that he went and he complimented her. And it was as if that it fell on deaf ears. But now, what happened exactly? So it's very, very important to make sure that when you're going to compliment, it has to be a suitable compliment in order for them to understand. What does that mean? I'll give you an example, right? They were speaking about, expressing different types of words of compliments. And what happened is that they came and they were speaking about the husband said that he wasn't getting compliments, and the wife said that she was giving a lot. And basically the principle is that many times there are male needs and there's going to be female needs, which I'll give you an example. Let's say you have a big rabbi. Imagine right now you're going to come and you're going to tell the rabbi, "Oh, Rabbi, how are you? You look incredible. Yeah, you lost a lot of weight. You lost this." So now, usually, that goes over his head. Right? Why? Because he's not really paying attention to it. And he doesn't really care about it. And sometimes it could even be offensive. Right? Why? Because he's like, okay, what's he talking about now about, how I look, how I didn't look, now I look better, I look worse. What's going on here exactly? But if you do the exact same thing to a woman, right, it could also be offensive. Because imagine a man will only come and speak about her looks. So she's going to say, what, you only care about my looks? Right? There was once, the guy that comes to the Shalom Bayit, to the rabbi, and he says, what, my mother, she always gives compliments all the time. He says, what are you talking about, says the wife. He says, of course. He says, look, she came and my mother said that you get up so early, and you run and you do this, and then you do that other thing, and then you do this, and then you do that, and then you take the kids to school, and you're doing all these things all at once. So she went and she said, I don't understand. All she said was that I'm a quick horse, but other than that, nothing else. What does that mean? For her, she wasn't looking at that as a compliment. For her, she was looking, if you're going to come and you're already going to give a compliment, make sure much more important than something of a compliment, of something external, you do it on something internal. Meaning their midot, their personality, the way that they act, their deeds. Now why? Because if it's only just going to be something external, something physical, it's not the best, it's not going to have the same outcome. And therefore it's so important for us just to understand that of the entire concept, when you're giving a compliment, make sure that it's mat'im. Mat'im means that you want to say it, for example, b'seva panim yafot. The Maharal Miprag actually explains on the Mishnah over there that he says something incredible. He says, human nature is that you want to test people how they feel about you. And therefore, when you're going to speak to them, they want to see your expression in the face. When you come and you see them, is it a big smile? Is it a big handshake? Are you happy to see them? Or just like, oh, hi, yeah. Just walk by. So they know how you feel about them. And that in essence is what's behind that. When you're going to give a compliment, the compliment has to be with a smile. It has to be done slowly. It has to be done in a certain way. Now, one important aspect also in complimenting is, what about lying and not lying in complimenting? What happens over there? Are you allowed to lie if you're going to give a compliment? So for example, she's going to come and she's going to say, is the food tasty, or is it lacking salt, or all those things? Are you allowed to lie or not? Huh?
Yeah.
He said, you have to lie. I heard 3 people there say no. I don't know who said no.
It's better to don't lie. I say yes.
Yes? No? What? No, you're not allowed to lie.
It's no good.
You just say it's not good.
No, it's no good like this. Next time she don't do it again.
Okay.
No, you can say it was delicious.
If you think it's good, tu dis c'est bon alors que c'est pas bon.
Ah, okay.
Si it's good, yes.
C'est toi, s'il vous plaît. Okay.
Même si c'est pas bon, tu dis c'est bon.
So I'm going to tell you as follows. Yeah, I'm going to bring you down an incredible Rav Desser, Michtav Meliyahu. Yeah? Okay? So, listen carefully. It says like this. A Gemara Mesechet Ketubot says, right, that a person always has to be me'urav im habriot. The Maharal comes and it says, you have to tell a person what he wants to hear is not considered a lie. Maharal Miprag says, again one more time, when it says that there it's talking about that you have to actually come and praise. You have to praise a kala. Do you say kala kemot shehi, meaning you tell a kala the way that she looks? So if she looks terrible, I guess the way that she looks, and if she looks good, you say kala nava chasuda, or do you say no? Bet Hillel says you always say kala nava chasuda. So it says over there, what are you supposed to do? You're supposed to always praise. Now why? It says Maral, it's not considered lying. The Michtam Eliyahu Rav Desser comes and he says an incredible yisod. Remember this yisod for the rest of your life. Rav Dessler comes and he says it's a mistake in truth and false. What does that mean? We think if I'm going to say the truth, right? So it's true. If I say something, so I lied. True and false. Incorrect. Says Rav Dessler, the purpose of truth is to bring people closer to Hashem or people closer to each other. To build. That's called emet. If you do the opposite, that's called sheker. So therefore, according to that, says Rav Dessler, when the Gemara says that it's mutar leshanot mipenei shalom, you're allowed to change the words because of peace, whether it's between a husband and wife or between people, explains Rav Dessler and he says, what is the yesod? The yesod is that since the purpose is to bring them closer together, so therefore you're allowed to. Not only are you allowed to, it's a mitzvah to.
So you're allowed to lie to your wife?
Yes.
Every day.
You're allowed to lie to your wife or to your
Oh my
husband.
God,
But now listen carefully. No. Listen carefully. One second. Somebody just came and he says, blanket statement, you're allowed to lie to your wife. No, I didn't say that. Listen carefully. One more time. The wife comes and she tells you, I just bought my dress, how do I look? If you're going to say that you look like Isha B'Av, where are you going to sleep tonight?
I tell her you should change the dress.
Baruch Hashem, you came. Okay. So, one more time. What are you supposed to say? You're supposed to say 100% you look beautiful. 100%. Make sure...
It's not right, Rabbi.
Huh?
Why?
One second. So now, what happens is as follows, right? If right now, if your friend bought this dress, you're going to say you look ugly. It's your friend. You're going to say you look ugly. You just destroyed them. If it was before they bought it, you're right. Before they buy something, should I buy it? No, don't buy it. It looks ugly. If you already bought it, now what are you going to say?
Okay, you can return it.
What? You could tell you come from America. Everything you can return. If you wore it, you're wearing it. How are you going to return it?
So if he doesn't like dinner, he
Yeah, I'm
should
talking
still
about
say
husband
it
and
tastes
his
good.
wife.
100%. But one second.
He's gonna keep making.
No, so listen carefully.
Yeah, that's what
Listen
I
carefully.
said.
Listen carefully.
Just say that.
Listen carefully.
I didn't say it.
So okay, fine. So listen carefully.
I mean, you become a salesperson all your life.
So-
At home and at home, at work all the time. You need to lie all the time. So she become my wife. Become
1
my
minute.
client.
Listen carefully. I'm going to say. Listen carefully. We are going to try to explain as follows. If right now, right, and this is maybe to explain it a little bit better. One more time. If right now she asks you point blank, how do I look? And you told her right now she looks terrible. What did you just do to her?
Destroy her.
You destroyed her. You killed her. You buried her alive. Right? You just buried her.
But say it nicely.
So now, one second. So, if right now, right, and so this is where a person has to actually understand, and they have to see like this. He comes and it says like this. If right now what's going to happen is that the way that you're going to say it, you're going to cause a distance between you and her, so you're not allowed to tell her. You have to actually come and you have to lie. Why? Because the lie becomes emet. So now she comes and she thought that it was amazing. And you come and you say it was horrible. So what? You said the truth.
Yeah.
Right? But you just killed her. So for it's a sur.
If I ask him, I want to know the.
I want to know the truth. Rabbi.
So now, but,
beautiful, but this dress, you know.
you're always allowed to do that. Because you didn't, but 1 second, but if you just said you look beautiful, but this and that, so now 1 second, but you just lied, because you just said it wasn't true. You're right, you could always add on. And that's what I think you said beforehand about saying, okay, fine, it's incredible. You know what, if we even add this type of spice, it'll even become even better. Right? It was the best way you just did, but even become better. Right? Something 100%.
You're beautiful, but this will look even better on you.
100%. Or when you put this on, your eyes show differently. You're the makeup. I don't know, anything. You could invent whatever that you want, right? And that you could always do. But you cannot come and say the truth. You look awful, right? Or the food was terrible, right? He knows that the food was terrible. right? But you know it and she knows it, but you're going to come and you're going to tell her that. That's just like coming and saying, imagine a guy, you already know it, so no way, you're going to come and you say, so the opposite. Why are you going to try to make them have a bad feeling? So therefore, if it's going to cause a distance between you, you're supposed to lie. If it's not going to cause a distance between you, and all that it is just going to say that, listen, by the way, in a certain way, and you could certain fashion that you could do it, then you would be able to say it. Now, even if it is that you would say it, depends how you say it, obviously. And that's obviously how you're going to say it. Depends when you're going to say it. And that's obviously we're going to speak about also during the criticism as well.
What if you can't lie?
What do you mean by you can't lie?
You're a bad liar. You're a liar.
He's a bad liar.
You should
Okay.
go to the salesman.
You're going to have to train yourself. You're going to have to train yourself to learn, right? That at the end of the day, right? That at the end of the day, you're going to have to learn that in itself is actually, what is the best proof? I'm going to ask you a question, right? What is my proof that it's mutar? Yeah? You ever heard of the Bible? Yeah?
The Torah.
The Torah, the Bible. What's written in the Torah? The Torah says, Sarah, she starts laughing. And what does she say? Right? Vadoni Zaken. Yeah, my old geezer, he's old. Now, okay, he's 99, she's 90. Okay, but you know how it is. They always say the other guy's old. Biden just said, right, that there's one person, right, that's not 100% mentally fit, and the other one is like mine. You know, they always say about themselves, right? I'm the good one. The other one's the bad one, right? But she said, Vadoni Zaken. Hakadosh Baruch Hu bichvodo ve'atzmo comes, and he comes and he tells Avraham Avinu, Lama tzahaka Sarah lemor haf umnam netel v'ani zakanti. I don't understand. I'm going to come and I'm going to say, Hakadosh Baruch Hu, you're a liar. The Gemara brings that Gemara. There's a Gemara b'Metzia. The Gemara says, from there we learn that it's a mitzvah. Not only it's mutar lishanot b'bnei shalom, it's a mitzvah. Why? Now you're going to think to yourself, Ribono shel Olam, Avraham and Sarah are 50 years married, minimum. I would say even more, right? If they're 99 and 90, imagine how many years marriage. Even if we're going to say that the ages are completely different than nowadays, they were years married. They didn't have children for so many years, which means that their bond is usually even stronger, right? You're going to really take it, and the truth is, it was actually true. He's old, he's not young. Is he really going to take it that bad? But that little negative feeling just shows us what it is, words of a compliment, how it could build, and that HaKadosh Baruch Hu came and he changed that even words of criticism, even if it's true, actually hurts. And therefore he actually went and he changed it. So therefore, obviously, right, if he's going to ask her if it's tasty or not tasty and everything, he's always, if you could always say yes and everything, 100%. But if it's hard, if he thinks it's negative, so then it's a problem. So then obviously you're going to have to start working your way around it. And then again, learning exactly how to lie. When I'm just going to finish up, because obviously I want to finish at least the shiur of the concept of machmaot today, right? When we're talking about on what exactly is a person supposed to focus on, first of all, there's going to be a concept of hidden compliments. Hidden compliments actually many times have a much better effect, right, than even straightforward compliments. So for example, right, you're at the Shabbat table and the husband just said something incredible, or your wife just said something incredible. What do? By the way, what Ima just said, or what your father just said, an incredible thing, or you're going to say, look how good the food was. When you come, and even though you're directing yourself to the children, obviously it's said about the wife, but that in itself is already going to have a very, very positive effect, because at the end of the day, we love hearing these good things, right? Just like a person loves hearing good things about their children, they love hearing about themselves. So it's going to have also a very, very positive effect. Even a person's name, Rav Desser says, a person's name, they like their name. And therefore it rings in there. So therefore it's good many times you actually address your spouse by their name, right? Shalom, whatever your name is, right? And you continue and you say it, right? Or in the middle of a conversation, you're actually going to say the name. It's not good to start speaking in third person, but it's actually nice to say it. Every single morning, you always say good morning. Whenever you're leaving the house, you're always showing, because it's not only just in compliments, it's showing that you care. And part of the you care is all these things of how you're doing it. When you come home, it could be that you had a terrible day at work, right? Or you just had a terrible day in the carpool and everything else. But when you come home and you show your expression with a happy face, right? A nice smile, what happens? It changes everything. So that's going to be very, very important in how we're doing it. We already spoke about the entire concept of what are we supposed to focus on when we're giving the compliments, not only just on the physical, but also on the spiritual and on the emotional and also on your midot and everything else. One thing which I will mention is very, very important is going to be not praising outwardly in between friends. So I'll give you an example. A woman comes and she says, my husband, he comes and he washes the dishes every Friday night. So now the woman comes and she says in her head, 1 second, ching ching, right? My husband's now going to do that. Why? If he really loves me, he's going to do the same thing. But now she comes and she goes somewhere else. And the other friend comes and says, my husband, he even brooms the floor on Friday night. Right? And now she comes and says, again. Now she does the same thing. Then, so imagine after hearing 10 different things, now he's going to have an entire list of chores, what he has to do. You shouldn't do that, because then what happens is that you're now obligating, right? And you're having very big expectations of what's actually going on. What you're supposed to do is the exact opposite, which means you're supposed to come and say to your friends, look how important it is that I come and I do the carpool in order that my husband could go learn Torah. Or I'm doing this, and all of a sudden by you doing those things, you're actually coming and you're making them actually even feel lighter, that now, even though it was a big burden for them to come and to do carpool every single morning, or for them to come and to do all this work, now they feel better about it. And the same thing, the husband. When the husband's going to come and say, look how much I tried to help out at home as well, because I tried to actually show that I also need to help out, and I share the burden with her, especially that she's also tired. And so all of a sudden that's going to give her that also help as well. The last thing I just wanted to mention is that, again, this importance of the concept of encouragement is, I think, one of the most important signs in marriage. It builds because it's actually showing that we're happy with one another. And that was one of the things that we needed to hear. If you remember, the men always needed to hear that the women are happy. The same vice versa. The woman needs to hear the encouragement because that means that he's happy with her, because that's what she's also looking for. The woman always needs to hear that she's the main focus of attention. More important than the sister, than his mother, than anybody else, and everybody all around him. So therefore, by him coming and actually showing that he's always happy with what she does, that in itself is showing the appreciation. That's going to be very, very important and going to bring a love and harmony inside the house. So Bezrat Hashem, hopefully, today we spoke about the entire concept of compliments. Believe that the next time we'll speak about what it is criticism and go about whether it's going to be shutafut, whether it's going to be partnerships, we're going to speak about also about in-laws, right? Obviously, there's a lot of what to speak about there. And then Bezrat Hashem will continue from there, Bezrat Hashem.